Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Inside the Coach's Office. My name is Tom Murphy Jr., and as always, I'm here with Coach Barnes. And today we got a really special guest. I'm crazy excited. We have Jimmy Parshay, who, if you went to Clawson, you know as an absolute Clawson legend, superstar football player, baseball player. You know, I could talk all day about this guy. He was a childhood hero of mine, so I'm like really, really excited. Not that he's that much older than me, I don't want to date him, but he was definitely a fun player to watch on the field. And today, Coach Barnes and I are going to talk to him about, we're going to go down memory lane a bit and talk about some of the good high school football memories that Coach Barnes and Jimmy Parshay had together as they played on some of the same football teams growing up, and they were also friends growing up. So they probably got a lot of fun stories to share. We're also going to be just talking some ball, maybe some coaching philosophies, some different schematic type things that Coach Barnes and Coach Parshay can get into. It's going to be a lot of fun. So you guys, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited to talk with you guys, to chop it up, talk a little bit about some ball.
Good to see you guys.
Absolutely.
Jim, this will be pretty fun, man. This is a little bit of a different format than we're used to, but we're excited to talk football with you.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah. So, Coach Parshay, why don't you give us a bit of insight about where you've been coaching and kind of what you've done in football the past, few years or so.
Yeah. So, I played a little bit of semi-pro, a little bit of college after high school, and then I kind of just became a fan and watched a lot of football. College and pro and all that. And then when I had twin boys, and so when they started playing football, I took them to their first practice and kind of like, okay, that's not how you run that drill. Let me like, this is how you do, like you kind of start seeing like what they're doing and stuff, and just offer to like hold a dummy or just get involved and help however you can and that kind of thing. And then it just kind of progressed from there. I started it when they were like 8. I coached the same kids until they were like 14. So I spent all those seasons with them and their families and everything else. And then after about 4 years of coaching the kids, I started coaching as a receivers coach at Division II college receivers. So when the kids were in 5th grade, we played in AYF. So we won our state, we won our region, then we got to take the team down to Florida to compete, and we ended up 3rd in the nation for 10-year-olds. And then I was like, okay, well, I want to be a better coach. I want to learn. I mean, how can I help these kids? So there's a small little Division II college around here. So I got connected through somebody in town and went and talked to the head coach there, and then ended up joining their staff as the receivers coach. And so then I could, everything I learned there, my goal was to then bring down to the kids and start teaching them, fundamentals and skills and things that they'll need, that'll help them in high school, and then beyond if they wanted to. So I did, if you count the 7 years with the kids, and then I was coaching the kids and the college 7 days a week or whatever. So about 10 years, I think total there, of coaching. So that's kind of my coaching experience. And then my boys went down to IMG for track for their freshman year of high school. And so I took that year off. And then last year, my wife unfortunately was sick with cancer, so I took that year off. So I've been out. This season here will be my 3rd season being out of coaching, but I did have a 10-year kind of run there, coaching and learning and doing all the things.
Wow, that's awesome. Hey, real quick, so IMG, that's pretty serious. So what was that experience like for them and for you?
Yeah, buddy. Oh man, it was amazing. We took them down there for a camp, just a football camp for one and a track camp for the other. And midweek, we get a call from the recruiters, and they're like, we really like them to come here. They think that they would excel, yada yada. So me and my wife were like, well, if they have the opportunity, we can't not do it. So we did. we went, and it was an amazing experience. Like they sat next to, in one of their classes, there's this kid, Oliver Peru or something. He's from Canada, and now he's going to be a Florida Gator. But the kid is 7'9", and he's going to be the tallest college player to ever play. There's this other kid that sat next to Jacob in class, 6'8", 300 pounds, lineman. He's got offers from everywhere, and they're buddies. There's a kid that on their track team that just competed at the Olympics. So it's just a great exposure and experience for them. Their coaches were like ex-NFL players, ex-Olympians. Their facilities were unbelievable. I mean, I coached at a D2 school. Their facilities there are D1 or above. I mean, they got their weight room. They got a mental coach, a strength coach. Their regular coaches. It was amazing, man. It was a great experience for them. But they did that their first year, and then mom got sick the second year. But they were able to kind of take what they learned at IMG and then apply it here, where we live now in New Hampshire, about 45 minutes north of Boston. And one kid was All-American in track this year, and the other kid didn't make it All-American. He didn't have as good of a race, but he has faster times. So they are right on track heading into their junior year to do whatever they want with track, man. Hopefully, D1 or whatever it is they want to do, But they're good, man. That was a great experience for sure. We might actually go back for their senior year too. So one more year here, and then bring them down there for their senior year.
That's awesome. Coach Barnes, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. We started our first week here in Michigan. Practice officially started this week, and it's definitely a grind for everybody. The camp is a little bit longer than normal practices when school gets going, and so we're busy, getting everything installed, and then looking forward to our scrimmage next week. And it's about that time where everybody's getting ready to, or all the kids are chomping at the bit to want to hit somebody else. And, coaches, we want to game plan and scheme for an opponent. And so we're looking forward to that. But as I get older, we're getting up there. This camp week gets a lot harder and harder. But we survived it, and we're good. And we're ready to go. We're ready to go next week.
How is camp working these days? I know when back in the day when we played high school football, it was like 2 weeks of two-a-days, man. It would just be brutal. Is it still like that? And how do the coaches, especially the ones that have jobs outside of, outside of the school or, outside of the team, how does that dynamic work with the camp these days?
Yeah. So rules have changed over the years, obviously, right? In a lot of different facets of football. And so for us, when it comes to practice time, we're not allowed to be out on the field more than 5 hours per day right now during these first couple of weeks, and then no more than 3 hours in a row, or 3 hours, right? So now, like, there are some schools that will have some 2-a-days, like maybe 2 hours in the morning, come back at night, or vice versa. I know they do that. I don't do that personally. We don't do that as a staff, but every coach is different in what they want to get out of their program. So yeah, it can be a grind. Like I said, so for us, we give the kids a break, but we're out there total for, we script it from 4 to 7:30 with about a half-hour break in between. So really we're only out there, those 3 hours, but we pretty much put two practices into one. We have a full offensive script, a full defensive script. But it's not like that for us anyway. When we get to school starting, when school starts, we cut back a lot. We practice a lot of tempo. We practice fast. So, I mean, our kids are definitely getting after it. And it was a little bit of a shock for them this week to get used to our tempo and the way we coach things. But so it's good. But like you said, it's definitely a grind. Some other coaches, I'm sure there's still some old school coaches out there that are really getting after it. You know what I mean? And smacking hardcore all the time. And we're a little bit different. I think we've talked about that on previous podcasts and how we do things. But to each their own. And we all survived first week at camp.
Coach Barnes, do you do any classroom? Is there any classroom portion of your camp?
Yeah, I mean, we try to. We do. Our younger players, especially our lower levels, have gotten in some classroom time this week. When school starts, it'll be a little bit easier on me and my staff. And Tom, I think you asked a question about coaches and their jobs and stuff. So every coaching staff has their own unique circumstances. For us, not everyone is a teacher on my staff, so we can't. Um, Practice in the morning or the daytime because not all my staff can be there. So we practice in the evening. But I know other coaches they go in the morning if allowed. But yeah, back to your question. When school starts, when we'll be more consistent. So we'll be on the field at 4 o'clock, and our school day gets done around 2:30. So our kids will either be doing homework, lifting, or watching, or we'll be watching film, doing some chalk time. So pretty much one of those three things will be happening after school.
Cool.
Yeah.
Um, Jimmy, what so when you're coaching the kids versus coaching at the D2 level, what's the difference in your experience when this time comes around where with the young kids, they're excited, but it's probably more of a grind and probably a little harder to keep their attention at the beginning of the season before the game start, I would think, because they're out of school still. Um, Whereas with the college kids, they're there for a reason. A lot of them might be on scholarship or, they've taken this journey and they want to be there. And so like did you have to adjust from coaching the little kids to coaching college kids at the start of the practice season?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was kind of an evolution with the group of kids that I had because I started coaching them, when they were like 8, and I was kind of just an assistant coach at the beginning, on that staff, and we had a big team, and we ran, double wing, and so there was a lot of like, standing around, a lot of kids bored, and things like that. So, a lot of times at that point, I would just try to keep the kids that weren't in, you know, um, occupy and just talk to them and stuff like that. They're, just little kids at that point. But then when I went to the college, by the time I went to the college, the kids were a little bit older, and they, not everybody fits into a double wing, and I think some of the little league coaches, one of the things I saw, I think a good coach will modify their offense or their defense or their game plans to the players that they have. And I think at the little league age, a lot of time that kind of the coaches tried to make players fit into their system, and so the kids that didn't fit oftentimes got kind of bored. And then when I went to the college, we ran air raid. I got certified in air raid. I knew nothing about it before I went in there, and by the time I left there, I knew it really well. So when I started learning, pass concepts
Swing your
and
sword. Swing your sword. Sorry,
that's
swing
right,
your
baby.
sword.
That's right. That's right. Different ways to practice and different things like that. I could kind of come up with plans to just keep them busy. Keep things high tempo, moving fast, never really bored. We didn't have to condition at the end as much because we did a ton of it during the practice. So I think, kind of activity, and just reaffirming that, hey, we're here for 2 hours tonight and I need your best. You can go home and play video games or play tickle butt and grab ass or whatever it is you're going to do, but when we're here, we're going to focus and we're going to keep moving. So I think it's just the pace and the tempo of what you like. The college, they were already doing it. Like it was ingrained. You could see how different, those two practices were, where, you got kids kind of screwing around or just being bored or doing whatever. And then you had these kids that basically, these college men that just came in and knew what to do every day. Like the thing I learned about the air raid in particular, was that it is a repeatable process. You do it over and over and over. You do the same stuff over and over and over, and you're basically betting that the defense that prepares for you for 1 week is not going to be able to keep up with the things that you do over and over and over. So it got to the point, especially at the college level, where the coaches really didn't need to be there. Like the kids could run, pat and go, settle a noose, whatever drills they were doing, kind of by themselves. So when I took that back to the kids, what I saw was the same thing. They kind of got it down and started to have fun with it, and there was less standing around and sitting around. And within those drills, like before we even broke off to run our plays or whatever, these kids have gotten 50 to 100 catches in already. And when you're running double wing, there's those opportunities aren't there. You know what I mean? So I think there was this evolution with the kids from when they were super little until by the time they got into middle school. Then I had them run around and kind of doing that. So I basically, what I learned at the college, I just tried to bring down to the kids at their level and kind of simplify it, make it easy so they could understand, and then just have fun with it.
Isn't that funny how that's worked? So like you think the higher the level, like the more complicated it has to be for kids, right? And that's just not the case in players. Like you're saying, at where you were at, it's all about repetitions and tempo and practice speed, and I'm sure the verbiage isn't as detailed as some old school stuff. You try to keep it simple for the kids so they can learn and play fast and not think and just go have fun. And that's become, I think, of all the trends in football. I mean, I think about all the trends in our lifetimes in football, but that's one that I think is very underrated. Just how much, not necessarily even tempo, but just the smaller verbiage. Where the West Coast offense, you would have to. I mean, you see some of those clips. I mean, those guys, their play calls were, enormous. But that's changed a lot, and that's helped. I think, and I think that's helped. Like sometimes simplifying things for like quarterback play. So that you talk about is Tom Brady the best ever, or how good are these guys really? Like is Lamar Jackson a great throwing quarterback? Stuff like that. It's like I think the systems have made those guys, and that's not a knock on their ability, but like because those guys are able to pick it up and they're smart. But like they're put them, like you said, in positions to be successful. And I think that's only helped them like it cleans up the coverages a little bit with the formations. And then, they're not always necessarily going through full field progressions and checking the protections and stuff. I mean, I know they are, right? I know they are to a degree, but no, I get it. I love that, Jim.
Yeah. So basically we'd have, we'd always add some wrinkles, but I mean, like 12 base plays. You got 3 quick game, 3 drop back, 3 screens, and 3 run concepts, and then we'd run them out of multiple positions and shifts and motions and things like that. So, but no matter what we were doing, I would just tell them the formation. So I'd be like deuce right, stick, and that's it. Mm-hmm. Or early or late stick, and that's it, and then they would run it. So it's actually really, really surprising how these 7th grade and 8th grade kids could pick this stuff up, because I basically taught them basically the same thing that they do at the college. And like I said, what you're hoping and what you're basing it on is by keeping it simple and running it over and over and over and over. It's the same thing for our kids, but it looks something completely different if you add a motion or a shift or a different formation. So it looks like we're doing like 50 different things, but we're really doing 12. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think like that, then it's fun, because then the kids aren't thinking about what they have to do. It's just, we've done it so many times that it's almost, second nature, and they can just go play. And that seemed to really work for us.
How were you able to keep the coaching position with the kids as the years went on? Like, weren't there other coaches in place and stuff like that, or how did that dynamic work out?
Yeah, so it's crazy because we had just a talented group of kids. I mean, that was amazing, and the coaching staff that I joined originally, they were together. We were all together for the whole entire time. Kind of what happened is I think after we went down to Florida and that I started coaching at the college, and then I started getting more responsibility with the kids. And then we had this weird thing where there was two leagues, like a AYF league, almost like kind of like when we grew up. There was Clawson Mavericks, and then there was the middle school Trojans team, right? I stayed with Mavericks, and I know others, played at the middle school team with the Mustangs. But there was kind of that same dynamic, and I said, okay, I'm going to go coach the junior high league, and it was the COVID year, so the AYF program decided not to continue forward, which is the group that I originally started with. So then I 7th grade, I became the offensive coordinator, and I brought the air raid in there. And then in the 8th grade, I became the head coach and the president of that league and everything. So, and then the other guys that I coached with before, they had more responsibility with work or travel or whatever. And I was in it, so it just kind of ended up that way,
That's cool.
Yeah.
Coach Barnes, I'm curious, with your camp approaching, but you've already had some practices and stuff. How has the adjustment been from doubling the roster? Like, speaking of like staying connected with the kids and keeping everybody engaged at this time, how has that dynamic worked for you with double the kids on your roster?
It's very much been a challenge. That's why the important thing, and I've said this many a times when people ask me what's the most challenging part about coaching, is making sure you hire a quality staff. So I've got great guys here that's a few holdovers from the previous regime, and then guys that I know, personally, and I've coached this before. Or one guy in particular who's been a head coach before, so I lean on him a lot. And so yeah, I try to rely on them. It was challenging at first because like those guys weren't established yet, as much as I was. And so a lot of the kids and parents were, approaching me with a lot of their questions and things like that could have been answered by, like our JV coaches, our lower level coaches. And so now we're to the point where, all of the lower level issues or concerns go to those guys instead of me. So that's, in the last week, that's helped out a lot. But yeah, I mean, still, I see the kids every day. I make sure I fist bump them and say hi. And it took a while to finally learn all their names. I haven't done this in a while. We had to put the last name tape on the back of their helmet so we know who was who, and getting used to that. But that has been a challenge. A lot of kids, and at first we started our camp this week where we were planning on doing this anyway. But when we had our summer camp, so to speak, off-season camp, we practiced everybody together. We wanted to get all the kids hearing everybody's voice, and so we did that. So camp was a little bit slower then, but now after day one, we've pretty much split completely. So we have our lower level guys on one side of the field and the older guys on the other, and that's made a world of difference with coaching, getting guys as many reps as they can. But yeah, a lot of challenges, a lot of I haven't been a head coach at a school this size before, so there's a lot of learning for me kind of on the fly, even though I've talked to a lot of people and done a lot of research. I think we're doing a good job. It was funny. I was talking to our athletic director the other day, and we have a new building athletic director, and he asked me, is this the first big school that I've coached at, or is this the biggest school that I've coached at? And I said, yes. Does it, do I look like that I know what I'm doing? Is that what, I was kind of curious where he was going with. He's like, oh yeah, no, you're fine. But that was kind of funny. So, I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, football's football, kids are kids. It's just, I think one of the more bigger challenges is if you don't, like Jim was saying with the younger kids, like if you don't practice like fast or with a purpose, like kids get bored easy, and when you have more kids than you're used to, and you've got kids standing around, and they're not really doing anything, they're gonna get silly, and get a little slap happy and start doing things you don't want them to do. So it's important that you keep them involved, whether it be, sometimes that happens with even like you got an injured player, like things like that where they can't really participate, but they're there to support. Well, they can't be screwing around and making things difficult for everybody else. So yeah, all those challenges are there. That's part of it.
Yeah.
Coach Barnes, sorry,
Yeah.
Tom. When you mentioned that you kind of have your older kids on one side and your young kids on the other side, do you do like, JV will be on, practice defense first while, varsity's practicing offense and then switch? Or how do you have separate
So
coaching
we
staffs for each? Or
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, initially, like day one this week, but at camp, we did our indie period together, right? Like the younger coaches did it right next to the varsity coaches, but they were doing the same drills, right? Like right next to each other. So that we were there. And then that was the same thing with our group session inside run and 7-on-7. And then team were obviously separate. And then no, we have a staff, a complete JV staff right now, and so those guys, I've seen different variations of what you're talking about, where have all coaches, coach just one side of the ball for the entire program, right? And then like you're saying, so if the JV is on defense, the defensive coaches will be coaching that, while the varsity offensive coaches will be doing their thing, and then you flip it, right? So, but no, for now we're not doing it that way. Like those guys, there's enough guys down there that they're going to do their indie group and team on their own, and they have their own plans and things like that. And that's just another thing off my plate. And part of it too is some of my coaches are younger and high school inexperienced per se. All right. Not so much football inexperienced. And so those guys, I think they would admit to this, have needed some guidance to this point, and maybe even now would say they still needed a little bit of guidance, but they've, I'm comfortable with them being down there with the kids, and I know they're teaching the things we teach, and it's going to be good for them. But yeah, like you said, Lo, like anything, practice you have to make it fun. You can't, even in camp when it's a little bit longer and it's a little bit warmer, we can't be out there, killing grass, so to speak, standing around. Our kids will get bored and not want to come back.
Jim, how
yeah,
was your experience coaching at the D2 level? Can you talk about, like, for those that might not be familiar with D2, you watch like Michigan on TV, or Florida, like, those programs are so huge, and it's like an entire operation, But at the D2 level, it's a lot different. Can you kind of explain what D2 football is all about, and kind of like the talent level, and the, like, just the procedures, like how many people are on the team, how far do you travel? Like, what was your experience like at that level?
yeah. Thanks for asking that question. Man, it was extremely eye opening. That whole process. What the stuff that I learned, X's and O's and that kind of things is off the charts. I mean, it was amazing. But the thing for me is football in general is such a community sport. Like when I started doing it with my kids when we first moved to New Hampshire, that got us out into the community, that got us meeting people and that kind of thing. One of the and as an ex-player, as you guys I'm sure can relate to, one of the best things about the sport that you just never want to go away is the like locker room experience. So my first day on campus, I walked in, we got about 100 kids. We've got a coaching staff, maybe 10 or so, and then you have your trainers and your medical staff and like all these people. So now you come in and now you're a part of this huge group, right? So that was probably my favorite part, and what I missed the most is just being part of that group. But the guys that I coached with, I was so blessed just to be there and to be a part of that program. The head coach was a offensive lineman, an offensive line coach for Syracuse, and he had coached at some bigger programs. The offensive coordinator, the dude that brought in the air raid, he was buddies with the running backs coach at Washington State University, where with Mike Leach and them. So when he came in, he recruited his running backs coach at the time, Coach Ferguson, and he worked for Mike Leach for 5 years or 4 years, I'm sorry, at Washington State. And then he ended up, we have a room above our garage. So he and his wife ended up moving here. So at my house. So I ended up living with a coach that coached with Mike Leach and the air raid and like all this other stuff. And so it was that part. I mean, it was such a awesome experience. But as far as the program goes, it's St. Anselm College, and it is a smaller D1 school, kind of like where I went to college, like a Elma College, kind of smaller uh, school, high academics, but I learned, and we would travel. Most of the teams are in New England. We had a few games like Tiffin, Ohio. We played against, I think his name's James Hasty. He's still in the NFL. He ran for like 300 yards and like 5 touchdowns or something on us. But it was cool, So it was cool, man. So we would travel, we'd bus to some games, Pace University's down by New York City. So we had some overnights in there, and just seeing and as a football coach, like a helper kind of coach, like you do all the grunt work, like all the Coach Ferg was doing the equipment room, so we'd be getting balls ready and passing out uniforms, and I mean just kind of like the whole thing. So I think at a bigger school there's more people that have specific roles, but at a smaller school everybody's kind of got to do a little bit more. But overall, the guys like that had the Washington State experience, the guy, like the head coach that came from Syracuse. I mean, I think that they tried to take a lot of those same systems and put them into the D1 experience. So, it was cool. And then another thing too is the recruiting. Like that was something totally different, So we had like in the wintertime, during the season, we'd be bringing kids in, on the sidelines. We'd have to coordinate with them and meet them and give them a tour before the, game and all this stuff. And then in the wintertime, we'd have to host the families and have dinner and introductions and talk and like do all that kind of stuff. In the when school was out in the summertime, we'd run camps, and all that stuff. So it just kind of a really good experience. And those guys, like I said, they brought some of the same principles. So we would, we'd watch every practice. We'd break down every practice. We'd break down the opponents, come up with game plans. I mean, it was kind of seeing everything at the top level. And when I first got there, we were just running double wing. We ran wing T back in the day. I've watched tons of football, but they started throwing out like 2x2, 3x1, empty, blah, blah, blah. I had no idea what they were talking about. And so it like just the education and my football IQ, how much it rose from being around those people was an experience, like I'll just never forget. And I saw kids come through the program and now graduate and get jobs and get married. And I mean, it's just there's nothing in the world. Anytime anything's ever gone bad in my life, I've always fallen back to football and what I learned about just about hard work, about that. Like it's been such a great gift for me in my life. And it's helped me basically every step of the way. With losing my wife recently and all that stuff, I go to the gym. I learn to meditate. You just keep falling back to the same principles that got me through high school. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but overall, that college experience was amazing. Absolutely.
So I'm curious, when it comes to D2 recruiting, how does that process work? Like how do you know what kids to kind of go after where they're talented but not D1 talented? How do you scout that out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of it was like what we did. A lot of times we did camps, and then you could see their talent and stuff. And obviously, recruiting is a nonstop process. Once it starts, it doesn't stop. But a lot of times, what we look for is like some of the bigger high school programs. You might get a guy that is second or third string on that. On his team, but he comes for us and starts. So there's at Westlake in Texas. So we got the quarterback that he was second or third string, didn't even start, and he came here and immediately started as a freshman.
Wow.
So we would go to a lot of times, like as far as like a football player, like some of it, like I said, was academic based. So the academic was like, they need like a 3.3 or something, to kind of even to go there. So that weeded out some kids, and then obviously, you're talking to their families and what kind of kids they are and that kind of thing. But then, yeah, I mean, talent obviously plays a role into it too, but you're not going to get the top level kids, and so you kind of know like when kids are coming out and they're X foot tall and X, weight, and their film's really good and all that kind of stuff that you may not get them at the D2 program. But the kids maybe a little shorter, maybe not as strong as fast. That they're probably not going to make it to D1 either. And then also too, like, do you want to go? You could maybe potentially go to D1 and just like be on the team, or you can actually come here and play football. So I think it's just case by case. You always try to go for, the best players and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of what Coach Adam at St. A's did was just he looked a lot for fit, at his program and the kids themselves. And do we think that we can develop them to get them to where he can contribute year 2, 3, 4? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So guys, I want to know if I can get you guys to talk a bit about some X's and O's stuff. I want to see if you guys can bounce off each other a bit. Because um, Jim, you said the air raid was a big thing, and obviously Coach Barnes is I don't think you don't necessarily run the air raid, right? But your strong passing philosophy though. So I was wondering if you guys could just kind of talk a bit about offensive philosophy a bit and like kind of what you guys lean towards and things like that.
Yeah, I'll go first because Jim's will be more interesting. Um, I mean,
I don't know about that.
oh, it will be, but yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, I think a lot of schemes and systems are blended together to a degree anymore. And so like everybody, like I know, Jim's gonna talk, I'm sure, a little bit about the mesh concept and the theories. And like I have some air raid friends who literally they just have mesh in their playbook, and there's like 6 or 7 variations off of that and how they run it. And Jim might say the same thing. And so I mean, to a degree, for me, where I've coached historically, and I think it's just my mindset, and I don't know if it's because I have an undiagnosed ADHD or something, but like I don't have the patience to practice all the time and teach like deep drop back philosophies and stuff like that, where guys are hitching up, stepping up in the pocket, all that type stuff. I That's just not me. I enjoy or I don't even know if enjoy is the right word, but we definitely, I'm more geared toward quick game screens, sprint out. Like we've put in a few more screens this year, then I'm pretty fired up about it. We actually this is the power of social media and YouTube. Like we literally stole it from the Lions. Somebody shared some of their screen cut ups on YouTube, and I'm like, all right, those are pretty cool. Like we're taking it. And so yeah, for me, it's more quick, more screen, more tempo, move the pocket a little bit, meaning sprint outs and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's where we are.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm not this one play. Well, if they can't stop it, I guess. But kind of like what you said about mesh and the variations and all that stuff. I mean, I'm very similar in what you said. I like to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands. Like our, we were fortunate we had a good line, but I don't want to ask them to engage for that long. So we did wide splits, and we had the guards and tackles back off the line a bit. So the philosophy there is space, right? Like so if they're back off the line, like their helmet's at the center's butt or whatever, and the ball snapped, that gives us an extra second or two before they engage. And then if they can hold on for a second or two, we should have the ball out. So quick game was huge. Screens were huge. I mean, basically you get the screen, that's just a sweep, to the outside. so very similar, I think, in that way. Like we didn't do too much stuff with the drop back just because, too many things can go wrong. My opinion anyway, but definitely love the mesh. There's no doubt about that. We also ran shallow, which was I really, really like that as well. If they're playing man to man, because you got a fast guy in the slot, they're not going to be able to cover him. If he comes off the heels of the defensive tackle, they're not going to be able to cover him by the time he gets to the end of the set, to the end of the line. So shallow was excellent too. It's a quick play where you also have your now routes if needed, but or your hots. Like cross is a little bit longer developing. I just am a really big believer in getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands. Then we did everything in shotgun. So he's catching the snap, he's getting the ball out of his hands. Quick reads, and then go. If chances are if he can get the ball to one of our playmakers in space, good things are going to happen. So a lot like you, Brian, I wasn't really stuck in my ways as far as that goes. We had a good number of plays that generally worked. Counter the jet sweep, and then the counter off the jet sweep, and power. I mean, those things are pretty hard to stop. Some screens, some quick game. I mean, we're running up and down the field on people. It was fun.
Yeah. So kind of like I mentioned, like I do just kind of think like every playbook now is like a mesh of something, right? Like to a degree, like there's a mismatch of a lot of the same concepts and thinking, unless you, like you said, you're a wing T team or a buck team or whatever. That's a little bit
well,
different.
You want to know one of the biggest differences I saw? This wasn't a question, but I guess just go off on this little tangent. But one of the biggest things that I saw between the college and the definitely the little league and even high school is the way that you practice. Mm-hmm. Like the way that you schedule, or the way that you practice. Like it sounds like you're doing it right. You named everything. Indy 7-on-7 team. Mm-hmm. All that, but like some people don't, at least where I'm at now, they don't really like practice passing. Like they'll put the plays in and but they don't like really teach them anything about it, and so if they do complete a pass, it's like luck, like, or just like the broken coverage or the guy fell down or something, but it just didn't seem like it was really rehearsed. And I think that's a huge advantage to offenses that pass, is that if they structure their practices the right way, they're going to put up points. Like there's no doubt about it.
Let me give you that's a great point.
Like what you've done.
Yeah, great point. And an example of that is, so let's say you tell a kid, you have a fade out concept and he's going to stare at the corner, like your corner's your read, right? Okay, you can tell him that all day. But if you don't practice that, where you actually stick a corner there and run the fade and run the out, right? He's not, you can tell him all day, hey, read that guy. Well, what does that mean? You know what I mean? It's like, you're not going to tell a 5-year-old go ride a bike. Well, no, like, okay, let's practice, and you pedal and just keep right. You know what I mean? Though, like it's, but that you'd be surprised about, I don't know so much at the college level, because I respect, but I'm sure even at that level, there are cases of this where, oh, well, your responsibility is to go block that guy. Okay, well, like, running backs in pass pro, going back to, okay, go block that guy. Well, like, are you gonna rep it? Are you gonna like teach the proper fit? How much time are you spending on it? Which is why we don't have running backs in pass protection, but that's a podcast for another day, but because I think it's a waste of time. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, I love that too. Yeah. 50. You guys call it 50 protections?
Well,
you get your running backs in the route.
They're the only time they're not in the route is on quick. We'll flash fake them because the ball's gonna be gone anyway, right? And if you're a linebacker that's a running back, you're a key team, you're running back key team as your linebackers, you're gonna step and respect the flash fake. So we do that, and then sprint out. We'll have them, help seal the edge. But even then, like if like you don't necessarily, I've seen schemes where the running back still releases on sprint out stuff. But yeah, absolutely not. It's a waste of, I go back to this. Yeah, we're growing up in Detroit, Barry Sanders, right? And I remember some of the smaller knocks on him was like, he's not a great pass receiver, wasn't a good short yardage back, and he didn't pass block well. Like in my mind, I'm like, who gives a It's Barry Sanders. Like, why are you telling him to pass block? Right. Well,
Right.
yeah. Like,
Yeah.
who cares? What are you doing? Get him the
Yeah.
ball. You know.
That's what I was getting ready to say. So it sounds like you're only asking your kids to do things that you have time to practice.
In high school, so
And
going back to this, how about
yeah,
this? In high school sports, how many, okay, people asking me this question too. Like, we're not a big personnel team. Okay. We're not a big fullback tight ends team. Okay. Part of the reason why is because I could dedicate a coach to coaching that position, but it doesn't happen a lot in high school football unless you're at the really big schools where you have a full-time tight ends coach and nobody has a full-time fullbacks coach, right? But those are skill sets that are unique to football that no other position plays. And so I think it's a disservice to those positions if you're gonna, not coach them up, but have them on the field, right? Or tell the tight ends to go with the linemen today, or tell the tight ends to go with the receivers today. That's not fair to them. And then in some cases in high school football, you might only have two tight ends. So you're gonna have one coach like handle just two guys. I just don't think it like, and like you said, the time, I don't know if it makes sense if you have the time to do all that.
yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you guys. I want to go back old school now. Talk about
Memory lane, baby.
yeah. I'm talking about your guys' glory days. Your chance to be Al Bundy here and talk about your 4 touchdowns against Polk High. Um, but I want to start off by saying, first of all, it was so awesome watching you guys play football. You guys are both really, really good football players in your own right at Clawson High School. Um, so I do got a lot of memories. My favorite one, though, I was talking to this Jim, before the show, but I'm going to bring it up now because it's when I was in 8th grade, you were a junior and you guys played this playoff game, and it was like the most perfect setting. It was at Clawson Stadium. The snow was falling lightly. It was like a Norman Rockwell painting come to life. And it was Clawson versus Country Day. It was the playoffs. Clawson's team was, really, really good. And the game was it was a tough play football game, but what really sticks in my mind is your punt return. And it was just it and it was that moment where you really showcased what an unbelievable athlete you were. Um, why you guys lost that game. Can you talk about like that moment in that game in that setting, and then kind of how that propelled you maybe into your senior year? Because that loss I know was for that whole team, for the whole city, it was pretty crushing.
Hey Tom,
Um,
can I let's set the scene, baby. Like, let's talk about this. Like, Clawson was ranked #1 all year. On that roster were guys that had the ability to play college football and did, including John Jansen, who everybody who's a Michigan fan knows who John is. Jimmy, obviously, we're #1 all year. Our starting quarterback goes out with an injury late in the season. And so we were trying to find our identity again. The week before, we hosted a home game against Centerline. We already beat them in the regular season. We beat them again. I think it was just 7-0, Jim. That
No, it
game,
was.
that
I think it was like 13 because I had 2 touchdowns.
13th, that's right. 13th. It was close. It was a lot
Yeah,
closer than the
13-7
regular.
maybe or something.
Yeah, it was super close. And then we're hosting, Detroit Country Day, who just a few years earlier was nationally recognized. Chris Webber is there. They had guys on their roster, Gerald Conaway, who played at Northwestern. I mean, they had some dudes. So like that setting, it was a Saturday football game in November. I want to say it was late then. It was an awesome day. So okay, I apologize. I had to make sure
no,
not
that
to
was
put
good,
any
man. That was
not
that
to
was a
put
much better
any
setup than
yeah,
I did,
okay.
man.
Okay.
Nice.
So go all right, go for it.
Yeah. So I mean, losing our quarterback late in the season really put a hamper on things for us. Like we couldn't. We kind of abandoned our normal game plan, and we were playing them tough. We just couldn't really move the ball on offense. And I just remember, I remember that play too, Tom. I remember you. I remember your sister. Please tell her said hello. She was my age. And I remember that day too, man. I'll never forget it. But that particular play, I was just so frustrated. I had tears in my eyes going back for the punt. And then I played Legion baseball with a kid from Country Day, and we were talking leading up to the game, and he was heckling me. And I just had tears in my eyes at that moment. And for whatever reason, like I said, we kind of abandoned our normal offense. So not to like sound selfish or anything, but I thought that I could help the team, and I really didn't get that many opportunities that day. So when it came to that punt return, it was kicked over my head and rolled. And it was one of those things where maybe you shouldn't pick it up, or maybe you're advised not to. But I did anyways, and was able to kind of start running to one side and then cut back through the middle. And I think it was around 78, 79 yards or something like that, punt return, which great play. I'm so happy it happened. I'll never forget that. But I just remember being so devastated at the end of the season. There's no doubt about that. And that led to the off season and the motivation and everything going into to my senior year. Unfortunately, my senior year, I ended up getting dinged up a little bit in that first game against Bishop Foley, and then I had like two or three games where I really wasn't myself. Didn't I think I missed one of them or two of them, and kind of half played in the others, and so it took me a minute to kind of get back to where where I felt like I should have been for that season or whatever. But no, man, that was a tough loss, man. We thought we were going to the Silver Dome, man, for sure.
Yeah. Coach Martin, so you were on that team too then, but as a sophomore, or
no.
oh.
So that I mean, that was one of the better teams probably in the history of Clawson High School.
Yeah.
There were guys everywhere. Like, don't downplay, like Chris Gardner was an all-state track athlete. Like, he was a corner. I mean, there were just a lot of good athletes there and good football
Brian
players.
Fisher, Paul Means, Dave Aller,
right? Like
Schroeder,
all those guys. Yeah.
I remember Paul Means, man. He looked like one of those, you know how like you watch an 80s movie and these guys look like they're 40 years old in high school. That was Means, man. That dude was just,
we haven't even mentioned, Todd Francis, who's a high school player, who's coached high school football, and he goes on to play at the next level too with you, Jim. There were some dudes. So no, there was a lot of kids in the football program then, and so I was not able to break through against all those dudes. But in the playoffs, we were invited to practice with those guys for the play, so I was able to be there and be at practice, and I thought there was a chance I could get in on some special teams and some kickoff, and so I was fired up about that, but it didn't happen. But no, I had the best seat in the house to watch Jim, and like going back to it, like, I mean, it's a small town thing, but Jim had the ability to really get really far in football. I mean, he was like not just his ability, but like people gravitated to him, like his personality, and he was such a good guy, and everybody liked him. And then on top of it, it was fantastic to watch play. In that, like, I remember that play, like we were struggling on an offense, we were down, and it was like a Charles Woodson punt return Heisman moment, right? Other than we lost, but that's what it felt like to us against Country Day. That was super cool. And like, you can never compare me to Jim athletically. It's not even close. Like, Jim was awesome. Like, he was awesome at everything growing up. No, he was fantastic. So yeah, no, that moment was really cool. And we talked about that. I remember talking about it years later with some of the coaches. So at Clawson, since I got into coaching, I became friends with them. Like, we really thought, and they thought at the time, that if we could have gotten by Country Day, like the next opponent was Imlay City, who had a running back who led the state in rushing, Rick Granada. Isn't it crazy how we remember all these things? But like, they felt that like we would we could have stopped them and beat them, and like Jim said, go a lot farther. So that's just I mean, sometimes those are the breaks in high school sports.
So now don't sell yourself short, Coach Barnes. You were you weren't 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing, okay, run like a 5'2", 40 probably. You taught that, maybe something like that.
Maybe a little quicker.
But you still you took all that, and you were a school record holder.
I actually and again, if Jim's healthy, like, this never happens his senior year. So like, I had 1,000 yards, and I was the first one in like 18 years to do it at Clawson. If Jim's healthy, he'd have had 2,000, like, no doubt. Like, not a doubt in my mind. He has 2,000 yards. It's not even, Tom, like, that's great, and I'm proud of that. That I got the most out of my ability in my senior. But like, again, don't kid yourself. Like, if he's healthy, it's like 2,000. So
what were you guys? Do you guys remember your 40 times from back then? Did you ever have it clocked?
I was not
I
officially.
I have no shame. I would say I was probably legitimately 4.75, maybe 4.8, if I'm being honest, right?
Yeah.
Jim was probably, I bet you were in the 4.5 to 4.6 range. But keep in mind, like you were a little thicker too. Like you
Yeah.
I mean you know
Well,
what I mean? Like
I
you weren't
think,
like a scat back. Like you are a downhill, like you were a downhill dude.
yeah, but when I
You
went
know?
to Elma, I was already 2 or 3 years removed from high school, and yeah, I wouldn't say I was in my best shape, but I ran a 4.6 there. So I mean, I
Mm,
think I was probably in the 4.4, 4.5
mm.
range for sure in high school. But to Brian's credit, I know he's not going to take any of it, so I give him some. He was like my little brother growing up in everything. He's a year like a grade below me, kind of everything, and he is just the poster child for consistency. Like he's going to show up and he's going to work, and that is what got him, to those 1,000 yards. Um, well deserved and well earned, and that's who Brian was, and that's who Brian is. I'm sure that he's doing the same thing now with all the programs that he teaches and coaches, putting in the same effort. Like he's going to be focused, and you can count on him, no matter what. The My senior year there, I left with 5 records. I think as well, like most touchdowns in a season, most touchdowns in a year, most touchdowns in a season, most touchdowns in a career. I had a 98, I think it was 99 yard run.
So do we.
My first game back being healthy, and then I had 2 games my senior year. One 263 yards in a game, and then 269 yards in a game, and then the longest punt return. Um, so, but Brian got the yards, and Brian deserved the yards. Like I said, he was just a model of
If
consistency.
I would say I think what I'm proud of, and now as I get older as a coach and a motivational speaker and educator, like I think I got the most out of my ability, right? Like it was one of those, if you had told me or told somebody when I was in ninth grade, would I be at all like that decent? Probably not. And so I'm proud of like working for that. You know what I mean? And that's something I'm going back to what you were saying earlier, like football, right? And what it's taught you and what it's taught me, and how sometimes it can be a reflection on life. Like there it is right there for me. So yeah.
Brian's Detroit all the way. Like bring your lunch pail to work and get it done. And I told you guys, I don't know if it was during this podcast or before, but I was lazy. I thought that my talent would take me far beyond where I actually made it. And I didn't learn. I'm still learning, every day. But as I coach some of these kids, and even like coaching my sons, um, they work way harder than I did. If what is it? Hard work beats talent if talent don't work hard. And so I look back even at that injury, and I think I had like 800 or 900 yards. I had 2 games where I had 260 or something in each of them, but I think I only played healthy about 5 games that season. And I look back at that and I'm like, could I have came back sooner? Could I have worked harder? Those kind of things. And I was lazy. And so, I was not first in the sprints or, any of those things. Good kid, and that kind of thing and all that. But just lazy, man. And even in the classroom, I didn't apply myself. Like people always tell you, so much potential, you don't apply yourself, but a lot of things that people have taught me or said to me in my life were actually the truth. And I just didn't realize it until later. You know what I mean? Like an example of that, like every day is a blessing, and my wife just passing away, I kind of like, wow, every day with her was a blessing, and so some of these things, like, I don't know, I guess just as a kid, I just deflected it. And it took me a long time to learn that those things are actually true and will always be true, you know? But ultimately I was talented, but lazy. And Brian, I wouldn't say less talented. Everybody's talented in their own things, but he was a hard worker. So he was able to get more juice out of the squeeze. You know what I mean? If you put him and I together, maybe my talent, his work ethic, we've been in the NFL. You know what I mean? But that's what happens, man. And you learn, and everybody has a different path. And that wasn't meant to be. But I don't know, man. Here we are.
Isn't that something too? Like, you probably even saw this in college. I don't know. You could attest to it. But as coaches, when like you said, your talent was going to carry us, so maybe you weren't that hard of a worker. Like you were like head and shoulders above like a lot of the kids in the program. Like even when you were younger, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. So like a lot of times when you're not challenged, it can be easy for players. Like I said, nowadays we see it all the time coaching, right? When you're not pushed or challenged for a spot, it's very good. And like, hey, I'm going to start because I'm just better than that guy, or I'm more talented than that guy. It leads to unfortunate bad habits. And that's a part of growing up, right? I mean, Some kids have that and know that, and some don't. And that's inevitably what happens.
Yeah, you guys know. I mean, we grew up. We were kind of like big fish in a small pond, right? Like everybody knows everybody. The other parents, like your mom, Brian, help raise other kids from the neighborhood, and you just everybody knows you, and you kind of you don't know or don't realize, I guess, that how big the world is, and just because you're good in Clawson, I mean, there's kids all over the country that are better than you, and like you said, I mean, I guess once you kind of reach that top, maybe you don't feel like you need to work as hard because like you said, you're going to start or you're going to play or whatever. But then when you go to that next level, it's a different ball game. I've always tried to teach my kids, there's more to life than just what's happening in your classroom or you're on the field and in this town. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But again, those are things you just, I think, learn from experience. And now we're old, so we can kind of look back at that stuff. And we've also had an opportunity to coach kids. So I spent a lot of time talking to the kids I coached about that kind of thing. Like we had a kid that was kind of just like me, like kind of lazy, but like really, really, really good. You know what I mean? And when he's like half walking back to the thing, I'll be like, there's a kid out there better than you right now that's running back to the huddle. You know what I mean? And when it comes time, who do you think that is gonna make it? The guy with the good habits, or the kid that just thinks everything comes easy to him and he don't have to work hard? But so I looked back at that time period, and was a great, unbelievable time that I'll never forget. But I also look back at that time period of to motivate me now to work harder, keep going or whatever it is.
Yeah. Coach Barnes, how do you take that philosophy like that you had, getting the most out of your ability? How do you translate that to coaching now when you see kids that aren't getting the most out of there, but especially these days when I mean there were distractions back then, obviously, but not as much as today, I think. I think these kids got it, I don't know, harder or whatever, but there just seems to be maybe a different philosophy when it comes to kids where we're not so hard on them as we were back then. Um, they're almost coddled to a point. So how do you take that work ethic that you had and still have and translate that into kids today who are growing up in essentially a different world than we did, 30 years ago?
I think so. I'll talk about me really quick. Like for me, I think the biggest reason why I was that way is because I didn't feel good about who I was. So what I mean by that is growing up, I wasn't the best athlete. I wasn't have girls, dialing my phone number all the time, things like that. I was fighting just to almost like fit in and be good at something. So like for me, it was one of those, I just like put my mind to it. I'm like, okay, this is something I want to do, and I want to see if it'll happen and I can be good at. So like I think that's part of the reason why I worked really hard at that. But like Jim, I didn't put that effort into the classroom as well. So it's ironic as a coach now. it's in a way, it's kind of cool. Like I can relate that story and still talk to kids and try to get, don't go this path. Like you have an opportunity to be something special, but it has to be all these facets. It can't just be football, football, school, at home, in the community, and things like that. So that's from that angle. And now with kids, it's just like a couple things, just be consistent. Right. And so like Jim was saying, like every kid I see being lazy or not hustling, I mean, we say something like, hey man, we need to pick it up a little bit. Like we got to be better. This is, that walk-in stuff is going to lose football games. Right. And you're just constant with that. And then just be as transparent with them as and genuine as anything. Just say, here's the reality. Like, for example, the other day it was kind of hot and we were dragging a little bit. And it was the fourth day of camp, and I'm sure everybody across the state of Michigan was dragging and tired a little bit. But I said, I know it's hot here, but guess what? It's hot in Milford too. Where we're going in 2 weeks, right? Like we're kicking off in 2 weeks no matter what. So I mean, we can't, like, we got to fight. You got to find a way to fight through it, and so that just being consistent, being honest, being genuine, let them know like you have an opportunity to go do something. And ultimately it's up to them still to a degree if they take it or not. Right. I mean, you do the best that you can as a mentor and feed them information and give them all the opportunities to be successful. They have to want it too. And some kids grow up at different times than others. Right. Some people don't become men until, they're in their 40s and realize it. Some people don't grow out of that mentality at all. And that's life.
There's a couple of things that I learned in coaching, just to kind of piggyback on that. Like, and I believe it's true. It's, I was talking earlier how people say things and you don't really, it doesn't hit you. But we always used to say like, the only thing that you can control is your attitude, effort, and enthusiasm. So, right. So even from a coaching standpoint, like we would try to be positive with them. Like, they drop a pass or fumble a ball or miss a block or whatever. Like back in the day, they would grab our face masks and spit and yell in our face and all that kind of stuff. Right. The game and society has changed, in that regard. But, we would just like, and I learned in sales, over my business career, just kill them with kindness. You know what I mean? And so you're always positive. And if somebody drops a ball, then we need to coach it better, kind of thing. So we would always reinforce, that. But another thing is that you're either coaching it or allowing it to happen. So if you see it, you're not going to like undress a kid and make him cry, or whatever, but you aren't going to let it happen. You're not going to allow it to happen. And the other thing is how you do anything is how you do everything. So if, you have a kid that if he's showing that on the field, he's probably showing it in other areas of his life as well. Not really putting in all the effort and, being lazy in different areas or whatever. So I think it's, but like Brian said, you can coach it up, but it doesn't mean that it's going to hit that person at that time. I hope. It took me a long time to grow up. Everything that I know now is from making mistakes pretty much, but I hope that some of those kids that I would catch in those moments and try to be positive and try to, motivate, I guess, to get the best out of them. Hopefully one day they're sitting around talking about when they played youth sports and they had a coach that would always wouldn't let them get away with that stuff, because that's what they need, is you can be positive about it, but you still are either coaching it or allowing it to happen. So I don't know. I'm sorry if I just jumped in there and just started talking, but
No, that's good. I was going to ask you kind of that same thing, like, but from a little different perspective for you, James, when you see a kid, because coming from your experience, you said you were kind of like a bit lazy, but you had all that talent. What do you do now when you see a kid kind of in that same boat? Like, he's got all this talent, but maybe he's not putting in that effort. How do you approach that now, since you kind of went through that as a kid yourself?
I think, one of the things that Brian, I sat down with him, I think it was the first year right before I started coaching. And he told me something that also stuck with me. And he said that nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So instead of so what I would try to do is just relate to the kid. And I'm thinking of one kid right now in particular who will probably lead the state in rushing this year. He hit like 1,500 yards and 28 touchdowns or something last year. I mean, the kid's a beast. But he was the kid on my team that I saw kind of the most in me. Um, you know, he didn't really like the drills. He didn't really like the conditioning. He didn't really like any of that stuff. But if you give the kid the ball, he is a beast. Or on defense, I see them lay kids out like you wouldn't believe. So what I would do, my approach to that was to I'd pull him aside, I'd talk to him. I made him sit out games before, or not games, but like halves or quarters, and things like that for just not putting his best effort in at practice or walkthroughs or whatever. And it basically, like I said, I mean, I would relate to him. I would tell him, my story. I would tell him, hey, I was just like you, and I didn't reach my goals with football. Now I've learned the lessons and applied it to my life. I'm pretty happy with, how things turned out, overall. But as far as football goes and sports goes, I didn't reach my potential because I didn't have the work ethic or the focus at that time. Like Brian was talking about, not getting the texts or the calls from girls, or not going to parties as much, and and things like that. So I was doing all that stuff, and I wasn't focusing on school or really putting my best in at the field, because my 75-80% was better than most 100%, at the time. And so I just try to relate to him, man. And I try to be real. Like, I don't come to him as a coach or a father or whatever, it's just as a person, like you don't want to look back and feel like I do, like, hey, I had an opportunity to maybe do something and I didn't do it. I mean, to my credit, though, I will say, my mom loved me so much that it didn't matter to her if I was the first kid in my family to go to college, first kid to graduate high school, first kid to graduate college. So my mom loved me like no matter what. But we didn't have a lot of means and things like that, so I didn't get much help or much direction, I guess, right? Like, I had already exceeded all expectations for my family, and I was going to be loved, like no matter what. So so I had to figure things out myself, pay my own way through school. Like, I just kind of had a different route. I mean, it's no excuse or anything like that. But I think, kind of like what Brian was saying, like, if you already know, like, you're at a certain level, then maybe you don't have to like work as hard. Like, to me, I was succeeding, but I just couldn't put it together to get to that next level. So when I see kids that, have it all, two parents and stable home environment, and, and just all the opportunities. And I've also seen, being older now, right? Like, we've actually lived it and seen, like, so I wasn't a good student, but then after working like in a factory and things like that, like, I realized, like, I gotta go to school. I gotta give myself a chance here. And so I like figured it all out and paid it all myself and graduated and, and did all that. But I had to go about it like a different route. And, there was an easier way, and I didn't realize it. But now that I've went that route and I know where I messed up, to talk to a kid that I see in a kind of a similar situation, like, now I'm coming at it with bringing a different perspective of, like, you can do it either way, man. You know what I mean? But, like, this is the easier path, or someone with your talent. If I could go back and tell my 16-year-old self, this is what I would tell myself, and so it kind of comes from, it's got to come from the heart. It's got to come from love. You can't just, like, the kids these days, like, you can just like scream at them and stuff. Like, it'll just go in one ear and out the other. So they really need to know that you care about them, and that you're really trying to help them and give them life advice. I think for it to have an impact on them or maybe change anything, you know.
Hey, going back to Clausen, we all played for Coach Moore. Just an awesome guy. I was wondering if you guys got any specific memories or like stories about your time at Clausen playing with Coach Moore and if there were any other coaches that specifically stood out to you that maybe you've taken some of that into your own coaching perspectives.
Yeah, the biggest coach influence for me was Coach Sparks, um, who is now married to Brian's sister. But he and we were in his wedding and all that stuff too, which was super cool. But he, man, he had such an impact on me and my childhood. Other coaches as well. There's no doubt. Coach Blowski on baseball also too had a pretty big impact, and Coach Moore, Coach Null, Coach Haney. You know, all those guys played specific roles. But Jim came to our first practice. You know, when I first met him, I think I was like 8 or 9 years old or something. And he came, he was just like sitting by the fence, like on the sideline. I think he had played tennis or something in high school. And he just came and watched. And same thing, you know, he's like, can I hold a bag or, you know, help however I can or whatever. And so he came and started coaching like Mavericks Little League football. And then he ended up moving up with us all the way basically through high school. So we were kind of like his first class. Me, Jeff Steffen, Mike Ellis, Mike Martin, and Chris Gardner, you know, and others. But he was kind of the coach that had the biggest impact on me because he could break things down for us in ways that we could understand. And because he was learning it at the same time we were learning it, you know. And I remember him taking us over his house and his sister Amy, like giving us haircuts, and he would drive us to the Y because then you had to like make weight and stuff. So Coach Sparks would drive us. He had a like a Jeep Liberty or something, some kind of like blue Jeep, and
a tracker, a geo tracker.
geo tracker. Yeah, and he would
Yeah.
he'd take us like off roading that thing a little bit, and we'd go sit in the sauna. Like some of the kids that had to lose weight with like trash bags on and like stuff like that. And we'd watch football with him. We'd go over his house, watch the games. Like he was just really like tuned in with us. And I think that, you know, over those 7 years or however long, you know, he was with us, 8 years, whatever it was, it was cool to like see him evolve while we were evolving, and then see him go on and coach at Clausen for 20 something years, or, you know, whatever it was. So, all of them, I think, you know, have a special place in my heart, but Jim really took that to the next level, actually spending time with us outside of school. I was in his wedding and Carrie's, you know, so yeah, I got to say Sparks for me. Coach Noel was awesome too, though. I loved Coach Noel. I love Coach Haney. I mean, there's everybody. We were blessed to have so many really good people around us during that time.
I think, yeah, to add to that, all of them. And I know that's kind of the easy answer, but like, you know, I look back, like when I decided to get into coaching, like, and then when I knew I wanted to be a head coach, like you look at qualities that you want to emulate in your program. And then sometimes there are some things you might say to yourself, hey, I would do that a little bit differently. And what was cool was, even as an assistant working for those guys, because I had the opportunity to do that too. Like you learn like so much of like what, you know, what you would do differently or what you would do the same. And those guys were really cool because they would let you think and kind of question things and have those discussions. And so as a head coach with my staff, I want those guys to do the same thing. Like they might do something differently than me, and that's totally fine. Right. And so those are the type of things I took from those guys. And just, yeah, like Jimmy was saying, like those guys all cared about you as people, you know, like they wanted you to be successful in life. They wanted you to be successful in the classroom, even though I didn't take it to heart. You know, but they cared. They genuinely cared. It wasn't just about football. And so they coached you up, made you better. And those are things I try to do today.
You guys mentioned Jansen earlier, John Jansen. I want to know what it was like to play with him that season, Jim. Because Jansen, I mean, obviously goes on to play at Michigan, long time NFL career. But back then, he was a star already in high school, heavily recruited, all that. What was it like playing with a guy of that caliber that was getting that kind of attention?
Well, the first thing I'll say about John that sticks out in my head is that he, uh, much like Brian, he had an just incredible work ethic from the beginning. Like, he was the first in sprints, and he wasn't the fastest. He just constantly pushed himself. I would watch, or we'd go like to the gym, and we'd be working out. I don't remember if it was like lifting class or after school or whatever, but he would like we'd lift and everything, and but he would be like lifting and then like doing sprints in between and then doing pull-ups and then all that. And I just lifted like 10 reps or whatever, and I'm just sitting on the bench, you know what I mean, waiting for catch my breath. And but he just was such a worker. And that's why he ended up being a captain for Michigan and the pros. I mean, that there was something special about him from the beginning as far as how he worked, and also the type of teammate that he was. He was like nowadays you say like, okay, you're a good team. I don't remember the exact quote, but you're a good team if, or you're not a good team if the coaches are doing everything, and then if the captains are leading of it, you're a little bit better. But if everybody's kind of coaching each other up, then you're the best, and he was I'd say an extension. He was an example of what the coaches were trying to get everybody else to be like, you know what I mean? And he lived that. So playing with him, well, first of all, it was amazing because I was a running back and we're just going to run the ball behind him and Schroeder. I think I had like 6 or 7, 8 yards of carry or something my junior year. And it's because, they were so good up front. And playing corner when he was playing outside linebacker, you guys are going to do pretty good over there. So that part was exciting, but I think it goes more to the person, who he is and who he's always been. As far as that goes. But I mean, playing with him, I guess, you kind of always felt like you always had a chance, because he was going to work his tail off, no matter what. Um, for some people, like you can't teach size, and not everybody, he was 6'8", 235 in high school or something like that. And so not everybody that has that size has the right work ethic. I mean, there's plenty of 7-footers around the world that don't play in the NBA, but he had the special, I guess, ability to be able to match those two together, the hard work and the like physical God-given traits. I couldn't be happier to see that he capitalized on what he was given because of the person he is. That's has been remarkable to watch. I couldn't be more happy or more proud to say that I did play with him. But I mean, as far as that though, I think that I don't know, man. Back in the day like that, I was in my own little world. I thought I was pretty good too, and so I didn't really. Then I wasn't like, oh, cool, I get to play with John. I was like, we're gonna go out and destroy this team, or whatever. And so, but looking back at it now, yeah, I'm super thankful. John had all the things I didn't have, as far as the mental makeup, I think that it takes to be successful. Now I've been successful now, in my own ways, in different ways or whatever. But those are things that I had to learn. I don't think I was mature enough at 16, 17, 18 years old to be able to put it together like he did. But I couldn't be more happy to say that I played with him. I listened to him on the radio, watched him play over the years. Really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because it's definitely because Michigan's my favorite team. The '97 team's my favorite team ever. Charles Woodson, it's my favorite player. And but to see a guy that is from your hometown get to that level, it's like, man, it's just really cool. So yeah, I'm glad I got to ask that question because like I said, it's just a unique thing because I mean, there's been some star athletes, at Clawson, but not to the level that he made it to, So it's nice to get a perspective of somebody who played with him back then, to know what he was like.
I love playing
Uh,
basketball with him. That was actually probably my favorite because I was a point guard and I was terrible on offense. So I couldn't shoot or any of that. But so what I would do is just drive, and then whenever his person took a step towards me, I'd lob it into him, and then I mean, he really made me look good for sure.
yeah, that'd be
that
like
was
a
fun.
Penny Hardaway Shaq kind of deal probably back then. Just throw it
Uh,
up.
I don't know about Penny. Maybe who's that white guy that's on Cleveland a few years back with LeBron? Maybe
Oh,
like a
geez, yes, yeah,
maybe
yeah,
like
Oh.
that. Maybe that guy in Shaq.
yeah. That's funny. That's funny.
Oh
That's funny.
man. Um, well, yeah, I mean, we could probably talk for days, but it's probably a good time to wrap it up. Coach Barnes, do you want to ask Jim your favorite question?
Oh, yeah, I do. So at the end of this podcast, we ask. This is a surprise, Jim. We didn't warn you ahead of time, but like,
Uh,
so we ask coaches and people like, is there a cool tradition that in your coaching experiences that you do with your team or have done with your team, or maybe it happened at St. Anselm, that's unique to you? So it could be like a special drill, a special fight song, maybe it's a midnight practice, a special team dinner. Is there anything cool and unique to you that you would like to share with others out there?
um. Well, so I've been out for 2 years, right? The coolest, unique thing that I ever did, in my opinion, is in most of like all the youth leagues and everything, we would get jerseys that we would then just give back to the program at the end of every year. And what we did is I actually bought jerseys with the kid's name on the back for each of them. And then at the end of the season, I took that and I had it framed um, for them so that so like my kids, and I see other kids that I coached and stuff that come by and say that they still have uh, these things hanging in their bedrooms, So it's like their uniform is in the frame, and then like a team photo of us winning the championship, and then like individual action photo. So as far as like a tradition, ritual things I did with every team, I don't I can't really think offhand. I've been out of coaching for a couple of years, but I do think the coolest, most unique thing that I did is I gave those kids framed jerseys that I think they still have in their room, and hopefully will have for some time, or at least that'll bring back a good memory for them when they can go back and look at it. Coach Haney did that for me, not uniforms, but he did like press clippings and things like that, which I still have. So yeah, I thought that was a kind of a tradition that he started with me in high school. He probably did it for others too. I don't know, but framing something and giving them something that they could keep and always look at and refer back to was something I did unique that I thought was pretty cool. I'm proud of.
That is awesome.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, buddy. I could show you. I could show you my kids hanging on their walls right now. I want to see one.
Oh, that's cool. Absolutely.
Let's get you out of this background. So blur my background. Sorry, guys. Hold on. Let's no. Shoot. All right. Let's see if I'm smart enough to get rid of this background and actually show you guys this thing. I get the background off. I need to call my kids in here to help me out here. Dang it. Do you guys know how?
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to view in the upper right-hand corner,
Yeah.
And
I
then
don't
the
think this
way
will be on the podcast.
No,
no,
no, no, no,
let's
no.
wait, I
Change
thought it
theme.
was wait, what did I do? I did this before too. I thought it was in view.
Change theme. Dang it.
Oh, you
I
know what it
know.
is? So yeah, on your own screen, you go to where the three dots are,
Yeah.
and
I,
then you go to choose virtual background, and then just go it'll pick up a screen, then you just hit none.
I got mute my audio, stop video, blur my background, adjust background effects, choose video filter, avatar.
Does it say choose virtual background? It should
Yeah, I
be
gotta.
right under blur my background.
No, dang it.
God, who invited this guy?
I know, right? Under blur, yeah, under blur is adjust my background. So virtual backgrounds. I just want to like check that or whatever. Go to video, touch my screen,
Time is dinner.
have a green screen.
6. So we'll leave at 5, probably.
Guys, I'm sorry.
This guy.
Yeah, I can't figure it out here.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, I'll shoot you guys pictures of it afterwards.
Please do.
Yeah, that's
but
got to be cool, man. Yeah, that's
super cool.
I actually did that. I started a softball team at my work, and the first year I took our manager, he was a really cool guy, so he helped get us like the funding and stuff for it. So at the end of the year, I took my jersey and I framed it and I gave it to him as like a, just kind of like a joke, like, here's my jersey, the legend. And but he actually put it up in the restaurant. It was up there for a few years.
That's
So
sweet, dude.
that was cool, man.
Yeah. I'm gonna send it to you here on the just on the text link that we are together.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, check it out. It's on its way right now. Guess I'm not technically inclined to be able to fix that for myself, but guys, I can't thank you enough for taking this time with me. I don't, like I said, I haven't done really a podcast before, so I hope it wasn't like a waste of your time or anything. But
not at all. Fun
Quite the
chat.
opposite, my friend.
I enjoyed.
This was
I
awesome.
definitely enjoyed the conversation with you guys, man.
Sick. It was very cool.
All right, Coach Barnes, you got any final thoughts for this week?
I do not. Great one. Let's be a rock. Let's get 2% better today than we were yesterday.
2%.
That's it.
All right.
Let's go, baby. You guys got this, man. Have a great week.
All right.
All right, you
Likewise.
guys.
Hey, if y'all need some juice, if you ever need some juice, man, I'm human positivity over here, man. So
Always.
call me up. Hit me up.
Nice.
Sounds good, man.
Well,
All
all
right,
right,
man.
fellas. It has been a pleasure. James, yeah, thanks, man. Honestly, like I said, for me, this has been a lot of fun, man. It was a big deal for me. I know Coach Barnes is super happy to have you on. We were talking back and forth, and we're pretty pumped about this. So I'm glad we were able to make it happen. I think a lot of people from Clawson are definitely going to be excited to listen to this one. But just football in general, you guys have some good insight. So I think this was a solid episode. And
Awesome, man.
so for James Parshay and for Coach Barnes, my name is Tom Murphy Jr., and this is Inside the Coach's Office.